Today on Listen Up, one husband, many wives. Polygamy seems to be on the rise in North America. Should it be stopped? We'll ask next. Welcome to Listen Up, where we explore news from a Christian perspective. I'm Lorna Duick. Polygamy has been around for centuries, but the issue is increasingly hitting the Canadian landscape. Renowned polygamist Winston Blackmore faces criminal charges in British Columbia for having 19 wives. He cites Mormon fundamentalism as his authority. But there are also other fringe groups and some in the Muslim community who believe it's their right to have multiple wives. Today, we'll meet a woman who grew up in a polygamous home and later spent almost 3 decades in a polygamous marriage. She says polygamy is abuse. We'll also hear from a professor at McGill University and ask him why he says we're becoming wards of the state over these challenges to marriage. But first, the conservative Muslim community has come into the spotlight for their support of polygamy, but not all Muslims favor it. Let's take a look.
People are not aware of it. We need to raise awareness about this issue because it is an oppressive institution.
Farzana Hassan is right when she complains Canadians don't know polygamy is growing in our country. She knows of over 100 Muslim families in polygamous unions in the Toronto area, and one of the district's leading imams agrees.
It is a fact. It does happen, whether people admit it or not. We certainly not going to shy away from it or say there's something that is passé.
But that's where agreement on polygamy ends between these two camps of Canadian Islam.
And I know that conservative Muslims believe that, well, you know, the condition of justice that Islam imposes on the institution of polygamy takes care of that aspect of it. In fact, it injects justice into the institution. I would seriously challenge that because, in my opinion, the institution is inherently unjust.
Not so, argues the conservative ideal. They believe polygamy could actually help social needs.
The fact of the matter is that Islam is a practical religion, addresses issues. So Islam says you are allowed to marry more than one under circumstances, and you have to be fair, and you have to be this, and this is a fair warning if you're not fair to so and so.
Sometimes the women don't know that they're in a polygamous relationship. In fact, one of the imams in Toronto advised polygamous men not to tell their wives that they are in fact entering into a polygamous relationship, which is a huge deception in itself. A lot of Muslims, of course, don't support the idea, and the majority of Muslims are not in polygamous relationships. And as I said, don't support it, they will not endorse it. I don't know if they would actually come out and speak against it because, again, it's a question of capitulating to the very radical and fundamentalist forces, and people tend to be very scared of those.
You know, we love Canada, and what we love about Canada is called a mosaic. A mosaic has the connotation of it that it encompasses all. It is keeps everyone to have their heritage and their identity without having to be a melting pot as other places do. You have to all become one because it's a beautiful flower of this garden. So we shouldn't really restrict something that is lawful by God Almighty, and respecting that, we also should respect the different aspects of the religions.
But your critics would say the polygamous marriages are not a beautiful flower, that there is no justice in them, that the women are subject to power and dominance.
We have to address these issues, whether it's actually a religious issue or a cultural issue. So we look back in the text and find out that God Almighty had a severe warning for those who are not going to be fair and just to their wives. On Judgment Day, they will be walking lopsided on the path, meaning the Sirat, this bridge that will beneath it is the hellfire. So there are very strict rules and regulations in order for you to be able to handle more than one wife. Not every man can handle more than one wife, but as I would emphasize, it's an option that you don't have to take. It's a solution. For example, if there's more women than men in the world, if every man marries one woman, what happens to the rest of women? How do we address the issues of illegitimate children? How do we address the issues of diseases? How do you address the issues of widows? How do you address the issues of, there is so much that we have to address. So Islam says this is an option you don't have to take, but at least it's a legitimate option, whether you don't have to have mistresses, women don't have to compete against one another, and women don't, and so on. So we say Islam provides a solution. We are part of the solution, not part of the problem.
The hope in this community would be that Canada could continue to allow Muslims to have the freedom to choose polygamous relationships.
I think that a lot is being supported, promoted in the name of multiculturalism. And as far as I'm concerned, multiculturalism by and large is a noble philosophy. I think that differences should be tolerated. But there's a limit. There's a limit to how much you want to tolerate. In Canada, for example, I'm aware also of the fact that FGM, or female genital mutilation, is also occurring. Again, surreptitiously, some doctors are performing it, and Canadians are turning a blind eye to it. So I don't believe that Canadians need to support everything in the name of multiculturalism. It wouldn't be multiculturalism, it would be an abuse of multiculturalism.
This is what Canada's all about.
Ah, so if pushed, you will take the steps needed to make it lawful, legitimate, and legal.
Certainly, we can try.
And you would try on the grounds of religious freedom?
Absolutely.
And I say that freedom of religion has to be seen within the larger human rights issue. And if human rights are being trumped by a religious practice, then that's not acceptable to me. It should be the other way around.
Coming up, we'll speak with a professor in Montreal who says the government doesn't know its limits when it comes to marriage, and it's threatening our traditional family units. The author of A Nation of Bastards, Essays on the End of Marriage, after this.